Welcome into a bonus episode of the Colts Perspective. On Saturdays, we talk about the Colts. We're in the middle of our position group roster reviews. And throughout the week, we talk about usually the NFL, but today we're going to talk about something a little bit different because the UFL officially announced its schedule yesterday morning at about 8 a.m. Eastern, I believe. Now, if you don't remember, the XFL and the USFL, the two spring leagues, they merged, created the UFL, took four teams from each league, right? And now here we are. We have the UFL. They're going to start play on March 30th. We have the schedule. I'm going to go over it very quickly. The Birmingham Stallions will travel to play the Arlington Renegades in the first game of the season. That's the defending USFL champion against the defending XFL champion. Then you have the St. Louis Battlehawks at the Michigan Panthers, the DC Defenders at the San Antonio Brahmas, and the Memphis Showboats at the Houston Roughnecks. Now, the Houston Roughnecks are really the Houston Gamblers. They, same players, same everything as the Houston Gamblers. They really just changed their name, image, and likeness to that of the Houston Roughnecks. So it looks like it's five XFL teams, but really it's four, and the Roughnecks are just pretending like they're a former USFL team. So they're in the USFL conference. They'll be playing a division rival, so to speak, in the Memphis Showboats. So on Saturday, March 30th, we have back-to-back games on Fox at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. That's the Stallions at the Renegades. That's the Battle of Champions. And then the Battlehawks traveling to Ford Field, where the Lions play. That's where the Panthers are going to play their season, and they're going to kick off the first of their 5 home games against the Battlehawks in Week 1. And then the next day, right, at 12 Eastern, we got my San Antonio Brahmas hosting the DC Defenders, and then the Roughnecks hosting the Showboats on Sunday, 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock on ESPN. Notice, back-to-back Fox games, back-to-back ESPN games, right? These are big networks, and I believe Fox has 21 games throughout this entire season. ABC has 10, ESPN has 10, which essentially just equates to 20 for that entire network, because, of course, the same parent company. And then ESPN2 and FS1 both have a game later on in the season. What's interesting to me about Week 1 is the fact that, first of all, we have those back-to-back games on Fox and those back-to-back games on ESPN. These are major networks. We're getting this product in front of fans as much as we can in Week 1, March 30th and March 31st. But what's interesting to me about Week 1 is the fact that we don't have all USFL, XFL crossovers. And I don't think that's a terrible thing, because it seems a little gimmicky if you put all of the USFL teams against all of the XFL teams. Of course, we see that in the first game, with the Stallions going to the Renegades. I love the idea of having the champions play against each other, because one of the most powerful narratives heading into the season is which conference is better, the US or the XFL, because they quite literally were different leagues last year. It's very possible, and I think it's going to be more evenly matched, but it's very possible that the XFL or the USFL is just leagues ahead of the other, and is just massively, just a better league and has better football than the others. And of course, you saw the dispersal draft, so which is really strengthening the USFL versus XFL sort of feelings there. And so I think finding out which conference is better, right? Not just which is the best team, but also which conference is going to perform the best. I think that's a very interesting narrative here. We see that right away with Stallions and Renegades, the two champions. Of course, those teams won't look exactly the same, but it's close enough. The Battlehawks and the Panthers, that's another crossover on the first day. That could very well be a rivalry, a cross-conference rivalry move. The Defenders and the Brahmas, that's an XFL showdown. The Brahmas are looking to get revenge on the Defenders after, they basically stole the win from the San Antonio Brahmas in their own building in the Alamo Dome last year. And the Showboats and the Roughnecks, keep in mind, the Roughnecks are really the Houston Gamblers. But of course, the dispersal draft has changed some things and coaching changes and all of that. But nonetheless, we have two division games early on, which is bound to happen because you play 6 out of your 10 games are in division. But we have crossover games from XFL to USFL. We have in-division games between two XFL teams or two USFL teams. I love the Game 1 Battle of Champions, and the championship of this season is going to be in St. Louis, which I also find very interesting and I appreciate. So St. Louis, they have great fans, right? Probably the best fans in the entire UFL, St. Louis Battlehawks. I like to think the Brahmas have some pretty good fans, but I'm consider myself to be a Brahmas fan, if you can't tell. I'm not really that invested, but if I had to pick a team, that would be the team that I'm choosing. And so The championship going to St. Louis. It was in San Antonio last year for the XFL. It's now going to St. Louis. I find that very fascinating and very exciting because that's a city that I think deserves it, first of all, and also would very much lean into that, exciting experience, especially because the St. Louis Battlehawks are supposed to be good this year, right? Presumably, if you're looking at past results, you're thinking that the Defenders are going to the playoffs. They were, I believe, 9-1, 8-2 maybe last year in the regular season, and of course lost it right at the end to the Renegades. And the Battlehawks probably would go. Maybe the Renegades. They of course won the championship, but they had a losing record, snuck into the playoffs. The Brahmas were terrible. I'll be honest. But nonetheless, you're looking at the situation where the Battlehawks could be in the playoffs playing to play their championship game in their own building. That would be very, very narrative that I think we'll very much see late in the season as the Battlehawks are looking to make the playoffs. This is going to be fun, all right? You may not think so right now. We got the Super Bowl up in a couple of days. We're going to talk about that, tomorrow and later on this week. But I think on a random Saturday in May, you're going to miss football and you're going to think, well, maybe I'll just watch the UFL one time. And if the fans are into it, if the players are performing at a high level, coaches, everything, this could be super, super fun. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to indulge. I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can. I'm very excited to see this league play out. And now that we have the schedule and we have a tangible representation of what is going to happen, right? We actually know who is playing who and where and what players are on each team. We'll talk about this more later. I just wanted to get this all, out there right now. The fact that the UFL announced a schedule early on in week one. Stallions at Renegades. Going to be an amazing game. Probably the best game of the weekend. Maybe the best game of the season. Who knows? Battlehawks at Panthers. I think the Battlehawks are massively better than the Panthers, but it's in Ford Field, and I think that's going to be a fascinating, once again, XFL versus USFL crossover matchup. Defenders at Brahmas. The Brahmas looking to get revenge on the Defenders for what happened last year in the Alamo Dome. They go back to the Alamo Dome to do it. Showboats at Roughnecks. That's also going to be fun. We're going to see what this new look Roughnecks team really is. And the Memphis Showboats as well, formerly the New Orleans Breakers, if I'm not mistaken, are, ascending, maybe moving up, maybe a dark horse in this league. Because there's 8 teams, I find this super fun because you can really get to know every team. I'm rambling at this point, but the UFL schedule is out. There is a lot to be excited about. And that's all I have for this bonus episode of the Colts Perspective. So keep in mind, right? We have more highly edited, more professional, more formal videos on this channel on Saturdays about the Colts, of course. It's Colts thing, but Colts channel. But then during the week, we'll talk about anything really. Usually the NFL, in this case the UFL. As the UFL gets closer, we'll talk about that more. Of course, we'll be talking about the Super Bowl the rest of this week. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to hit like and subscribe if you feel so inclined. And man, enjoy the UFL when it comes around from the Colts perspective.